Hey friends, if you have ever felt overwhelmed by the summer heat or caught off guard when winter gets unexpectedly harsh, you are not alone. Let's consider some simple, practical ways to build resilience by learning to tolerate both the heat and the cold. This is not about extreme biohacking or expensive tools. It's about working with the body that God gave us in the world that He created for us to live in as an act of health stewardship and to be prepared for whatever life brings. So let's dive in. I live in South Central Texas and we are heading into summer. Last time I checked, this week we're already going to have some 100 plus temperatures. Whew, are you ready? I am not ready. And in the winters where I live, they're usually not too bad, but we can have some doozies sometimes. I can think back to 2021 when we had what we lovingly call snowpocalypse, where we had severe for us. I know if you live up north, you probably had way worse, but it was pretty bad for us where I am. Not just how cold it got, but for how long it stayed cold and how long we had the ice and the snow that accumulated. And we also had power and water outages that lasted for several days, which means no heat. And in the summertime, power goes out. The air conditioner that we rely on can go out, and maybe sometimes the repair services won't be available for a while. And then you realize how much time when these things happen we spend inside in our climate controlled little cocoons inside of our homes or inside of where we work and things like that. And that almost makes us kind of living as if we are separate from what we call nature. But we are actually part of this creation, not separate from it. And resilience equals both physical and mental strength. And we tend to just seek comfort, right? But learning to be okay with the uncomfortable is also part of our health stewardship. Discomfort builds character and grit. God uses that. He uses uncomfortable and difficult things in our lives in order to build our character, to build our strength, to build that grit into us, ultimately preparing us for eternity. And we can be intentional in how things that we build into our lives in order to build that resilience, both physically and mentally, ourselves as part of our stewardship. So there are some benefits. It's not comfortable and it's not fun, but there are some benefits to being out in the heat, sweating. There's some controversy on this as to whether or not we actually eliminate toxins when we sweat. But I did find when I was looking it up that there was a 2016 study done in China about heavy metals, and that folks who regularly, whether it be through exercise or the kind of work that they do, that they regularly sweat, actually had lower levels of heavy metals in their systems. And it's been found that there is it's probably just a small part of how our body eliminates these heavy metals, but it is a small part. And then there's other studies in both 2011 and 2013 about BPA chemicals and the PCBs. These are things that we are exposed to quite a bit in our modern world, that there is some elimination of those through our sweat. So that would be an important reason to sweat. It also supports our skin by cleansing the surface of our skin, can support our circulation, and of course, getting out and sweating and doing hard work builds our resilience. And of course, in the cold, there's benefits to being cold. And I have to say, I don't really like to sweat, and I definitely do not like to be cold. So this is something I'm working on in myself. But it can boost what we call our immune response. I tend to think of it more as our toxin elimination response. But it boosts that and it helps that function in our body. And it can help our mental clarity and improve circulation and builds that tolerance and resilience. I need to get out there. I'm going to be looking forward to this winter to work on my mental clarity, getting used to being out in the cold. But we can keep it simple. It does not have to be fancy. We don't need gadgets Although there's nothing wrong with those, nothing wrong with having a sauna or a cold plunge tub. But I don't think we need to say, I can't afford that, so I can't do this. Because it's just part of being in this world that God made for us to live in. You don't need a sauna or a cold plunge tub. You just need to go outside. Start where you are with what you have. So let's look at some things that we can do. We'll start with the cold, even though we're kind of coming out in the northern hemisphere anyway, coming out of the cold season and going into the hot season. But when it's cold, we can just step outside and be out in the cold. Of course, you want to protect your feet and your hands and still put on a jacket. But I think, and I started experimenting with this past season, although it wasn't one of our really bad winters, but I still would kind of put on, it's like I look at the temperature and I think, oh, I want to put on an extra layer. It's like, no, I'm not going to put on the extra layer. I'm just going to put on one layer. So just one less layer than you would be comfortable with to still be protected, but also start building that tolerance to actually being cold. And then gradually increase how long you're out in it. And then, of course, now as we're heading into summer, you can still do some cold tolerance with having a brief time of cold water in the shower before you turn it to the warm. And also something I've experimented with, nothing I've gotten regularly into just yet, but I've started trying to remember to splash some cold water on my face in the morning. And I have seen there are folks that practice doing a bowl of some ice water and actually plunging their face into the ice water. I have not tried that yet, but it's supposed to help with like puffiness and things like that. And I know today I am actually visiting my dad in the mountains of New Mexico, and it's really windy today. That's why I'm inside instead of outside. And something after I walked my dog, I've got my whole face feels like it's puffed up from something outside. So perhaps I should go try one of those cold splashes or cold plunges with my face. But do it slowly. Okay, we don't want to jump into something that our body is not ready for. We start small and gradually increase it. So for the heat, which is kind of more realistically where I am at right now as we're heading into hot summer starting this week, one recommendation I saw is to keep your air conditioning no more than 10 degrees cooler than outside. Now, I don't think I've really tried this yet, because that would mean where I'm at, when we are 100 degrees or more, that would mean not having your air conditioner below 90. So I'm not sure if my husband would agree with that. But that is a recommendation that I have seen, something to consider. Maybe it would work for you where you are. Obviously, hydration is incredibly important if you're getting out in the heat. And this includes not just plain water, but adding in electrolytes and minerals into your water. And if you would like, drop a comment below and I could do another whole video on that. And then start, with just 10 or 15 minutes and gradually increase how long you can tolerate that. Dress light. Listen to your body, take breaks as needed. We do not want to push ourselves to the point of heat exhaustion or heat stress, okay? So take it small and gradually build as your body can tolerate longer periods of time. Signs of heat stress would be an overwhelming fatigue, shakiness or dizziness, nausea, things like that. So you do not want to push yourself to having those kinds of symptoms. So definitely listen to your body and take a break and cool off, hopefully before you hit that point. And sweating is normal and it's beneficial, as we talked about earlier, and it's something that I need to work on. I know I need to be out and doing more things outdoors to the point of sweating for my own health stewardship. And that's what it's all about. It's about that faith and that stewardship. Remember, that's always our foundation and why we're doing it. God designed us to live life in this world that He created, not separate from it, okay? Health stewardship includes this adaptation and resilience to the world as it is now. It's a fallen world now, and there's issues, but that's what it's all about. And I have here Romans, let me pull it up on my phone. Romans chapter 5, I think I'm going to read verses 3 through 5, where it says, this is Paul speaking to the church in Rome. And not only this, but we also exult in our tribulations, in our troubles, in our challenges, right? Knowing that tribulation brings about perseverance. And perseverance, proven character. And proven character, hope. And hope does not disappoint because the love of God has been poured out within our hearts through the Holy Spirit who was given to us. So we have the Holy Spirit, and we know that God uses the challenges that come to us in life for building our strength and our character and our faith. And we can do that ourselves as part of being good stewards of our bodies by challenging our bodies. And it's also a mental challenge, isn't it? To tolerate the uncomfortable heat in the summer and the uncomfortable cold in the winter. And just to build that resilience within us. No matter where you are in your health, you start where you are, and we want to do it incrementally in tiny steps. Even if you struggle with a chronic or a permanent condition, I think then it's even more important. It's important for all of us, no matter what our health condition is, but it's even more important to be cognizant, mindful of our stewardship and how we're taking good care of our bodies and trying to build as much strength and resilience as we can build within what God has provided for us. So let's take action together. Do it in community. I just turned 57 last week, and it's kind of been on my mind that, oh my goodness, I now have less than 3 years at this point until I turn 60. What can I do? I think I need to be a lot more intentional and thoughtful about my own health stewardship and building this strength and resilience in myself. Perhaps I can really get serious about it, and by the time I do turn 60, maybe I'll be in the best shape I've ever been in. I don't know. So I am really kind of thinking about that, and probably will be some videos on that coming down the road. So but we have each other, and it helps. Obviously, we have the Holy Spirit. I always say this, to pray and seek where God would like you to focus on your own health stewardship. We always have the Holy Spirit to give us strength and help us to persevere. But he also gives us community. Find someone in your in-person world, and if you don't have someone, come here. And let's encourage one another in our health stewardship. But ultimately, let's not fear discomfort. Certainly, we need to stop avoiding discomfort, talking to myself here, but we can grow through it. And then as we build that resilience, we can be more prepared and able to withstand what life brings. So I want to hear from you. Share your progress. Invite others into your journey of trying to build your own resilience, improving your own health stewardship. And always come back here and leave comments and let me know how you're doing. I am over here cheering you on. So I wish you a great rest of this day, and I look forward to hearing from you.